This entire full long-form video script is an entertainment dramatized fictional cinematic universe narrative-inspired version based on the title. Blake Shelton storms off Kelly Clarkson's show after heated clash. Full story and is not representing actual factual events that happened in the real-world talk show industry. It begins like a normal afternoon studio taping day energy where the crew assumed this episode would be another normal evergreen midweek segment, and nobody in the building had the slightest clue tension was quietly incubating beneath both sides. Kelly was unusually wired with caffeine today, super rapid funny mode, but also trying to defend pop songwriting autonomy. And Blake was extra stubborn today, ironically in comedy way at first, insisting country ecosystem gatekeeping has purpose because it filters out fast viral algorithm error noise. At start audience laughed because both were roasting each other in friendly style rhythm. Kelly said modern pop female writers are tired of being minimized. Blake sarcastically said everybody is victim. Kelly instantly felt micro disrespect tone shift. Kelly decided she wasn't letting that one slide live. She pushed back sharply that nuance matters and making everything into everybody always victim joke is what destroys real conversation momentum. Blake then doubled down that half the internet is addicted to performative outrage because outrage equals retention. Kelly said sometimes outrage exists because the world does in fact mistreat people daily. That is not performative, that is survival and actual lived pressure from power imbalance. For 30 seconds crowd became dead silent. Producers noticed monitor latency turn into emotional freeze shock. You could feel the live show oxygen sucked out the room like thermal vacuum. Blake shaped his hat downward and leaned back like defensive bunker posture. Kelly leaned forward like prosecutor protective sister warrior mode. This was no longer playful roasting between two superstar friends. This suddenly mutated into philosophical identity war about the meaning of human empathy. Blake said it's impossible to solve anything when everyone wants special category sensitivity exemptions. Kelly said it's impossible to solve anything when powerful voices refuse to acknowledge damage created by dismissive minimization language. Blake said modern culture weaponizes feelings. Kelly said feelings were weaponized against women, minorities, and outsiders for decades first. Blake paused. That pause was nuclear. Audience realized he accidentally corner-boxed himself. Blake tried to reset tone like comedian salvage sequence, but Kelly already entered lawyer clarity channel. She said you can't claim you believe in story, suffering, heartbreak, music authenticity yet also claim human sensitivity is performative. If music is not built from sensitivity then what is it even built from? The tension finally reached structural break. Producers cut to rapid commercial bumper panic strategy. During commercial, both still kept whisper clash. Kelly said this is why women forever feel like they must over-explain existence. Blake said this is why conversations will never be allowed to relax. Kelly asked him if he ever realized women artists had to fight 200 times harder to get radio rotation equal. Blake said now she is making everything political. Kelly said equality is not politics, equality is human baseline. Crew could literally feel static electricity going across metal truss rig like the building itself was absorbing emotional voltage from two megastars arguing identity philosophy. Kelly wasn't yelling, she was precise, measured, lawyer surgical. Blake wasn't yelling, he was rigid, brick wall status, old world country traditionalist coded worldview versus modern post-trauma aware neurogenerational language standards. They came back from commercial. Kelly tried to move into neutral guest segment pivot. Blake wasn't ready to move. Audience now watching like historical TV moment is happening. Blake said pop culture has become addicted to emotional hostage-taking. Kelly said this is exactly gaslighting dictionary definition. Blake said the world can't function if every sentence requires full legal disclaimer. Kelly said but maybe it should if it prevents harm. Audience inhale freeze moment again. The air felt heavy like thunderstorm pre-strike. Blake tried to joke again but now it came off hostile. Kelly didn't laugh. She said words have consequences. Blake said this is why comedy is dying. Kelly said comedy is not dying. Lazy cruelty disguised as comedy is dying. That line exploded the internet instantly later. Blake removed his mic pack off. That alone sent director into meltdown headset mode. Blake said, "If I can't say how I feel without everything being turned into moral felony, then this industry is useless." Kelly said, "If your freedom requires other people's pain, then it was never freedom." Blake stood. Kelly said, "Don't walk out on real conversation." Blake said, "This isn't conversation. This is trap." Blake walked. He didn't slam anything. He didn't scream. But walking away live is louder than screaming. Kelly kept composure like supreme-level professional TV queen mode. She looked dead into camera and said, "Vulnerability is not weakness. It is data." Millions later stitched that clip across platforms. Best friends fight in real life too, but this fight symbolically belonged to entire generational ideological divide. Backstage, Blake pacing Hull like tornado trapped in straight narrow corridor. Publicists terrified, because they know internet industrial complex thrives off narrative villain manufacturing. Blake's brain was not villain mode, it was confusion mode, because for decades country world rewarded stoic non-emotional stance. Kelly came from pain alchemy school, turned trauma into art. This was value system collision. Kelly stayed on set after show ended talking with remaining crew. She didn't demonize Blake. She said the world must learn to update emotional language literacy. You can't heal world using old language built inside patriarchal systems that punished emotion expression. You need new vocabulary that does not punish sensitivity. Crew felt like they just witnessed TED Talk masterclass disguised inside meltdown moment. Blake inside dressing room told one bassist friend he hates becoming meme villain whenever he doesn't share same worldview. Bassist said world is evolving quick. You must evolve with it, not against it. Blake said, "I'm not against empathy. I just fear world that can't allow disagreement." Bassist said disagreement is allowed. What's not allowed is disrespect disguised as relaxed normality. Next morning trending systems detonated. Every platform from short-form clips to reaction commentary podcasts turned this episode into cultural thesis case study. Blake saw his name trending with hostile captions. Kelly saw people calling her manipulator. Both hated seeing internet flatten complex nuance into cartoon binary. Publicists tried damage contained, but algorithm economy eats conflict like fuel. This moment was always destined to become tribal war zone. Blake wanted to call Kelly privately, but ego friction gravity was still too strong. He replayed moment on studio monitors over and over. He realized Kelly never called him evil. She called system that raised him outdated. Kelly meanwhile rewatched same clip realizing Blake wasn't intentionally cruel. He was indoctrinated by decades of reward for emotional numbness. This was not enemy versus enemy. This was trauma history versus tradition history. Kelly drafted a message, then deleted, then rewrote, then deleted. Blake opened messages, then closed, then reopened, then closed. Their friendship was too deep to collapse over one ideological collision. But when millions of strangers weaponize their moment, it can make people believe apocalypse has arrived. The internet always speedruns dramatization. Conflict was never truly between Blake and Kelly. It was always humanity versus outdated emotional vocabulary. Kelly eventually voice memoed Blake saying she didn't want to win debate. She wanted understanding. She said she fights because she wants art to evolve. She wants girls younger than her to not suffer what she had to survive to get respect. Blake listened 2 times, then 3. He understood she was defending pain-based people, not prosecuting him. That voice memo more powerful than any PR strategy. Blake answered. He admitted he felt cornered. He admitted he used sarcasm to avoid vulnerability. He said vulnerability always felt like trap. Kelly said that is the exact trauma that must be healed. You can't walk into future still believing emotional softness is threat. Blake said he wants to learn new language. Kelly said learning language is leadership. That was the first true oxygen moment after storm. Publicists wanted giant joint statement for optics. Blake and Kelly refused. They decided if healing is real, you don't perform healing like theater for internet scoreboard. They agreed after next taping they will speak human to human, not as brand assets. When art industry sees 2 megastars handle fracture with honesty instead of retaliation, maybe culture can update human conflict protocols. Blake asked producers to return to set quietly next week. No promo circus, just clean re-entry. Kelly agreed. When they both walked into the building next taping, Crew instantly felt giant pressure fog dissolve. Kelly hugged him first. Blake hesitated, then hugged tighter. Audience, that episode had no idea previous week nearly created Cold War inside daytime talk ecosystem. Peace is quiet. Peace is subtle. During segment that day they addressed moment minimally with authentic tone. Kelly said sometimes friendship includes brutal honesty. Blake said disagreement does not equal cancellation. Kelly said discomfort is not enemy. Avoidance is enemy. Blake said learning is not weakness. Ego is weakness. That micro 90 seconds clip became internet healing clip, millions stitched because it didn't try to moral superiority flex. Music World then turned this meltdown moment into master case study on communication. Talk show industry realized viewers crave real conflict resolution, not just fake polite performative harmony. The world is starving for processing frameworks, not screaming matches. Blake and Kelly didn't just repair friendship, they accidentally innovated new pop culture conflict literacy model. Kelly later privately told one producer that the most important part of this entire experience is that Blake eventually chose curiosity over ego. Blake later told same producer that the most important part was Kelly chose compassion over domination. That dual mutual recognition is what breaks generational trauma chains. Both realized this argument was destined to happen eventually, because art evolution requires friction. Months later interviewers still baited them, trying to reignite controversy. They both refused. They both would simply answer with extremely calm, non-reactive tone. We learn from each other. We are good. That irritates chaos economy pundits because they prefer endless fight loops. But this was now boundary-protected friendship. They refused to feed machine again. Blake eventually introduced more emotional language and songwriting sessions. Not cheesy forced vulnerability, real vulnerability, the kind that actually hurts to write. Kelly heard one of those tracks and said quietly, "That's the new frontier." Blake said he finally understood what she meant that day when she said feelings are data. Music is language. Evolution is painful but necessary. Fans months later didn't even remember specific quotes. They remembered energy. They remembered shock that two huge stars could break and repair in same arc. That kind of cultural memory is stronger than viral insult moments, because it shows possibility that conflict does not have to destroy community. Conflict can build new structure if processed with compassion. Final season finale episode months after, Blake returned as surprise guest. Audience exploded. Kelly smiled without tension. Blake said live on air. Disagreement is not the end, it is chapter transition. Kelly said vulnerability is not threat, it is the beginning of real conversation. That applause lasted full minute. No one needed dramatic sensationalism. Healing itself became spectacle. And that is how one clash that looked like permanent relationship fracture became blueprint for emotional evolution. Blake stormed off not because he hated Kelly. He stormed off because he feared feeling. Kelly fought not because she needed to win debate. She fought because she needed the world to evolve. And in the end they both did. Pain became growth. Growth became future. Conversation became legacy. 1 year later, journalists analyzing cultural shifts called this clash the moment where celebrity discourse permanently upgraded into complex emotional literacy era. Because before this, conflict always ended in team warfare tribalism. After this, fanbases started expecting resolution, not just chaos. Blake and Kelly unknowingly created a new template for how public disagreements should operate. And ironically, their conflict improved TV culture more than any perfectly smooth episode ever could. The data scientists inside streaming networks later studied that original episode metrics and discovered something insane. The spike wasn't the fight moment. The spike was Kelly calmly telling camera vulnerability is data. That line hit the world like thesis manifesto. People are exhausted from fake performative niceness. People crave real language that doesn't flatten emotions into disposable meme fuel. The world is starving for emotional literacy architecture. Blake admitted later in one songwriter retreat that when he stormed off that day his body was not actually angry, it was overwhelmed. He defaulted to escape because that is what old world masculinity always taught him. Real men never let emotions swallow them. Run before feelings win. Kelly dismantled that myth. Live in real time. Blake later told people that moment changed how he sees young boys being raised. You must teach empathy early. not suppress it. Kelly became case study hero in trauma-informed communication communities. They clipped her lines into educational modules, not because she destroyed Blake, but because she defended sensitivity without cruelty. You can confront without humiliation. You can argue without dehumanization. You can demand emotional accountability without stripping someone's dignity. She proved entertainment can still be humane while being seismic. Blake started attending men's emotional literacy workshops secretly. He didn't want internet treating it like PR. He didn't want applause. He wanted real change. He wanted to understand why sarcasm became his shield. He wanted to understand why emotional softness felt like ambush. He wanted to unlearn generational masculine emotional denial that was coded into him long before fame. And that private unlearning became his quiet greatest achievement. Industry executives later said this clash saved daytime talk relevancy because the world realized daytime TV can still have cultural stakes and philosophical substance. It doesn't need to be sugar-coated comfort always. It can be messy. It can be intellectually explosive. It can evolve language in real time, and audiences emotionally invest harder when stakes are meaning-based, not cheap shock chaos spectacle. Kelly and Blake eventually did one joint podcast conversation 1 year later. No cameras, no studio live audience pressure, just raw long-form conversation. 3 hours. They never mentioned old fight directly, but everything they discussed was the matured evolution of that ideological clash. Masculinity, creativity, empathy, accountability, self-reflection, ego detox. They didn't need to revisit wound. They needed to show how scar became blueprint. That episode became #1 podcast globally for 9 weeks. People replayed certain sentences like scripture. Because humans are desperate for conflict resolution frameworks. The world is drowning in outrage economy. People want how to fix pain, not how to weaponize it. Blake said vulnerability feels like turbulence at first but becomes oxygen later. Kelly said empathy is renewable energy source that never runs out if shared. Years later, documentary filmmakers approached both for official feature film about that day. They both declined. They said telling story again would cheapen what it became. The story is not the fight. The story is the transformation after the fight. The moment only matters because they built future beyond it. The meltdown moment is not trophy. The growth is trophy. When they eventually performed Do It Live Again on a major awards show 5 years later, the arena went silent first 10 seconds like a holy cinematic freeze. That performance wasn't reunion, it was evolution milestone, a universal statement. Two people can fracture and rebuild. Humanity is not doomed. Love and friendship can survive ideological earthquakes if both sides choose growth not destruction. College classes later studied this entire saga as psychological case study in communication theory, not celebrity gossip, but moral anthropology lab. The original clash showed how language can either weaponize or liberate. The aftermath showed how humility and listening upgrade culture more than winning arguments. Blake and Kelly unintentionally became academic reference models. Younger artists raised after this era now value emotional fluency like they value melody or production. They write lyrics with generational self-awareness. They speak more intentionally on air. They no longer treat feelings like hazard. They treat feelings like navigational map. That shift is subtle but civilization scale important. That one episode created ripples across generational cultural code. Kelly once said privately, "I don't want to raise new artists who fear their feelings. I want to raise artists who wield feelings like instruments of truth." Blake once said privately, "I don't ever want to weaponize humor against someone's sensitivity again." That is the core legacy. Two megastars deciding evolution is better than nostalgia. In the end, people didn't remember exact disagreement topic forever. They remembered courage to repair. They remembered humbleness. They remembered that storming off wasn't end of story. Storming off was beginning of transformation arc. Because conflict isn't failure. Conflict is opportunity for a new version of self to emerge. And that is why this one talk show episode lives permanently inside modern pop culture mythos. Because it was proof humanity is capable of emotional software update. Blake and Kelly became living evidence that pain can become architecture not destruction. That vulnerability can become weapon for healing not warfare. That evolution is not optional. It is destiny.